poor girl hid the injured man from enemies. He was the most powerful man alive. The scent of crushed roses clung to her fingertips as Kalea Monroe closed the flower cart and wiped sweat from her brow. The streets of Rosemore Heights had emptied, save for neon lights flickering above pawn shops and liquor stores, and the soft hum of danger that always crept in after dark. Her shift was over, but rent still hadn't been paid. She tucked her earnings, barely enough for tomorrow's bread, into the pocket of her threadbare jacket and started the long walk home. That's when she heard it. A dull thud, a grunt of pain, the screech of rubber tires peeling away in the alley behind Rosetta Pawn and Guns. Kalea froze. She glanced left, then right. The air grew colder, like the night had suddenly inhaled and held its breath. Curiosity warred with survival instinct. She crept toward the alley. Just a peek, just in case someone needed help. What she saw made her blood run cold. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a torn designer suit, lay sprawled against the wall. Blood painted his side, soaking through white linen and dripping to the cement below. His face was handsome but pale, ghostly pale, like he'd been carved from ivory and shadow. One eye swollen, lips split. She took a step closer, her hand trembling. Hey, are you—" His eyes fluttered open, icy blue, piercing, desperate. He reached out with a trembling hand and gripped her wrist like iron. His voice rasped like gravel. "Tell, Asher, I'm alive." Then he collapsed against her, unconscious. Kalea's heart slammed against her ribs. What the hell was this? Who was Asher? Who was this man? She looked toward the mouth of the alley. Headlights. A black SUV rolled slowly past, its tinted windows scanning both sides of the street like watchful eyes. Without thinking, Kalea crouched, wrapped the man's arm over her shoulder, and dragged him behind the dumpsters. Her legs screamed from the weight, but she didn't stop until the SUV disappeared around the corner. Her chest heaved. She looked at the man. He was bleeding fast. If she left him here, he would die, and she couldn't let that happen, not when no one else would help him. By the time she got him into the attic above Aunt Thelma's bakery, Kalea's back was soaked in sweat, and her arms trembled like jelly. She laid him on the old mattress beneath the eaves, panting, staring at the stranger now resting in the room where she kept her books, her dreams, her life. Up close, he looked like someone out of a magazine. Even battered, his features were arresting. Strong jaw, thick lashes, faint stubble, the kind of expensive haircut you only saw in downtown towers and penthouse boardrooms. She peeled off his coat to inspect the wound. Gunshot. Her breath caught in her throat. Gunshot? Who was this man? What had she just brought into her home? She pressed an old towel against the wound and whispered to no one. "You better not die on me." Downstairs, the bakery lights flicked off. Aunt Thelma was closing up. The world outside moved on, oblivious. But upstairs, in that small, creaky attic in Rosemore Heights, a girl who had nothing just saved a man who had everything, and neither of their lives would ever be the same. The morning came fast and hot, pouring sunlight across the crooked floorboards of Kalea Monroe's tiny attic room. The man, the stranger she had dragged off the street, hadn't moved all night. Kalea sat on a milk crate beside the mattress, clutching a chipped ceramic bowl of warm water and an old rag. Her aunt's warning echoed in her ears from years ago. Don't bring home strays, especially the human kind. She gently lifted the bandage she'd made from a torn pillowcase. The bullet hadn't exited. That meant infection. That meant fever. That meant she needed real help. But calling the hospital wasn't an option if his enemies were still out there, and the SUV from last night said they were. Bringing in authorities could get them both killed. Her eyes drifted to the man's hand, calloused, strong, the fingers of someone used to power, used to gripping something heavy, a weapon, maybe. Suddenly, the floor creaked. Kalea froze. Then came the knock. Tap, tap, tap. Kalea! It was Maya, her cousin. Why is the upstairs door locked? Kalea scrambled. She pulled an old sheet over the man's body and threw her jacket over a bloody rag. Cleaning, she called out. Bleached the floor last night. It still stinks. A beat of silence. I thought I heard voices. You good? I'm good, Maya. You sure? You sound out of breath. I ran out of air freshener. Maya's sigh was audible. Whatever. Aunt Thelma said you're off today. Don't forget to wash the racks before lunch rush. Footsteps retreated. Silence returned. Kalea exhaled shakily and dropped to her knees beside the man. Okay, mystery man. You need more help than I can give. She opened the backpack she used for flower deliveries and pulled out a small jewelry box. Inside sat a single gold earring, a gift from her mother, her last valuable possession. With a kiss and a whispered apology, Kalea tucked the earring in her coat pocket and slipped out the back entrance of the bakery. The clinic smelled like bleach and fear. It was the kind of place that didn't ask questions if you paid in cash. Behind the curtain, a scowling nurse handed her a box of black market antibiotics. 10 pills, that'll be $4.50. Kalea gave her the earring. The nurse examined it, bit it with her teeth, then nodded. Take 2 now. Crush them up. Mix with boiled water. Back at the attic, the man was awake, barely. His head turned as she walked in. His gaze, sharp and untrusting, locked onto her like a wild animal cornered. Kalea froze in the doorway. He tried to sit up. No, don't move, she said quickly, stepping closer, hands raised like she was calming a storm. You're hurt. You lost a lot of blood. Where am I? He growled. His voice was low, deep, commanding. Even half-conscious, it held power. My attic. You were shot. I found you in the alley behind Rosetta's. Who else knows I'm here? No one. He stared at her, eyes narrowing. You're lying. I'm not. Her voice cracked. I hid you. I brought you here myself. My aunt doesn't know. My cousin suspects something, but I said I was cleaning. Please, I swear I'm not lying. He stared for a long moment as if trying to see through her soul. Then his shoulders slumped, and he collapsed back onto the mattress. Kalea moved fast. She crushed the antibiotics with a spoon and mixed them in warm water. Drink this. Please. He grunted, but obeyed. His hand brushed hers, hot with fever. She tucked the sheet back over him. I don't know who you are, she whispered, but something tells me helping you might have just put a target on my back. The man said nothing, but the corner of his lip twitched, as if he already knew. That night, Kalea Monroe couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, peeking through the dusty blinds at the empty street below. The world was calm, but upstairs, the attic was humming with tension. The stranger was awake again, watching her. You haven't asked for my name, he said, his voice raspier now, but clearer. He lay reclined against a makeshift stack of pillows, shirtless, bandaged, but alert. Kalea glanced at him over her shoulder. I figured if you wanted me to know it, you'd tell me. His eyes studied her, cold blue, piercing. After a pause, he said, Zayden Cole. She blinked. That name. Wait, she whispered, turning fully toward him. Zayden Cole? Like Cole Tech? Cole Syndicate? He said nothing, just stared. Kalea's mouth went dry. You're that Zayden Cole, the billionaire tech mogul who disappeared last week? The man the news said might be? Dead? He finished, raising an eyebrow. Kalea sat down slowly. Her whole body felt numb. She stared at him like she'd just realized there was a panther resting on her bed. Zayden gave a half smile. Not dead, but some people wish I were. Who did this to you? His gaze darkened. People I trusted. Kalea's heart pounded. This wasn't just an injured man anymore. This was one of the most powerful men on Earth, and he was lying in her attic, in a borrowed t-shirt, on a stained mattress. She stood and began pacing. Okay, I need to think. You're being hunted. People tried to kill you. You're Zayden Cole. I'm a nobody who sells flowers and lives over a bakery. This is insane. I didn't ask for your help, he said, his voice even. No, she snapped. You were unconscious and bleeding to death in an alley. Forgive me for having a heart. He didn't reply, just watched her, as if her defiance amused him. Kalea stopped pacing. Her breath shook. Are they still looking for you? Of course, he said. They think I'm dead. That gives me about 72 hours before they realize I'm not. What happens then? Zayden leaned forward, wincing as he shifted. They'll try to erase me properly, and if they find out you helped me... Kalea swallowed hard. You'll be erased too. Later that night, Kalea sat on the attic floor, staring at the strange ring she'd found in his coat pocket. It was gold, heavy, engraved with a lion's head over a pair of wings. Definitely not decorative. She flipped open the inner band. There was a chip embedded in the metal, tiny and glowing faintly red. A biometric ring. What in the world was this man involved in? She tucked the ring back into the coat pocket and moved toward the mattress. Zayden was asleep now, his chest rising and falling in deep, slow breaths. For the first time, she really looked at him. His jawline, his scars, his presence. He wasn't just a billionaire, he was something else, something darker, something sharper. Power radiated off him even in sleep. Kalea reached for the blanket and gently tucked it higher over his chest. You're not just a man, she whispered. You're a storm waiting to wake up. She had no idea how true that was. Outside, across the street, under the shadows of the lamppost, a man in a charcoal coat lit a cigarette and watched the attic window, a faint red light blinking on his earpiece. The next morning, the scent of cinnamon and fresh dough rose through the floorboards, clashing with the tension that lingered in Kalea Monroe's chest, like smoke from a fire that hadn't been put out. She wiped her hands on her apron and checked the time. Nearly 9 a.m. The attic was quiet. Too quiet. She hadn't dared go up since sunrise. Zayden had been running a fever in the night. The last thing she remembered was him whispering something cryptic about a lion's vault and drifting back into unconsciousness. Kalea pressed a hand to her forehead and glanced out the front window of Thelma's bakery. Across the street, a man in a dark coat leaned against a black car, pretending to read a newspaper. Her stomach dropped. He was still there. The same man who had been outside last night when she came home from the clinic. The same man who never once looked at the headlines he was pretending to read. That wasn't a customer. That was a hunter. Kalea! Her aunt's voice called from the back. You finished stacking those trays? Almost, she called back. She darted behind the register and reached for her phone, her fingers trembling. The bakery's Wi-Fi was slow, but good enough for a search. Zayden Cole missing. News articles flooded the screen, stock drops, speculation, rumors of betrayal. One headline caught her eye. Cole Syndicate's CEO vanishes after cyber attack. Board of Directors assumes control temporarily. Temporarily? She bit her lip. If someone had tried to take him out to steal the company, it meant the danger wasn't over. And if the man outside was one of them... A loud crash sounded upstairs. Kalea's heart seized. Her aunt would definitely hear that. I'll check it, she shouted preemptively, running up the back stairs 2 at a time. Zayden was on the floor. He was shirtless, pale and breathing heavily. He'd tried to stand. The overturned chair was evidence of his failed attempt. What are you doing? Kalea rushed to him, looping an arm around his waist. His skin burned under her palm. Fever again. "I need to move," he muttered, his voice hoarse. "Lying here makes me weak." "Lying here is the only reason you're not dead." She helped him back onto the mattress. "You're in no shape to fight anyone." "I was trained to recover in 3 days." "Well, welcome to the real world. This isn't a military base, it's my attic, and you're on day 4. Zayden chuckled, then winced. "Your mouth's got bite for someone so soft." She flushed, scowling. "I'm not soft." He tilted his head, studying her. "Number you're not." There was a pause. A quiet current charged the air between them. Kalia stood to straighten the sheets, needing something to do with her hands. "They know you're alive," she said after a moment, not meeting his eyes. Zayden's gaze sharpened. "What do you mean?" "There's a man outside the bakery. He's been watching for 2 days. Same car, same coat. He's not with the city or my aunt's suppliers." Zayden's face hardened. "Describe him." "Tall, clean-shaven, olive skin, black leather gloves. Looks like he could kill someone with a toothpick." Zayden gritted his teeth. "That's Calvin Rhodes, one of Velez's personal dogs." "Carmen Velez." Kalea's voice dropped. "She's the woman from the photos, right? The one they said you were supposed to marry?" He gave a curt nod. "Engagement of convenience. A merger, not a romance. My board pushed it." "And now she's trying to kill you?" "Or she's working with those who are. Either way, I'm a threat to their plan, and now so are you." Kalea's mouth went dry. "You should leave. Tonight. I'll help you get out." Zayden grabbed her wrist, not hard but firm. "I'm not leaving you behind." "I didn't ask you to." "You saved my life," he said quietly. "They won't stop with me. They'll follow any thread, anyone connected. I'm not your responsibility." "Number, but you're my only ally." His hand lingered on hers for a second too long. Kalea felt heat rush to her cheeks and quickly pulled away. "I'll get more antibiotics," she muttered, backing toward the stairs. "Kalea," he said, before she left. She turned. "Thank you." She blinked. "For what?" "For being the first person in 10 years who didn't want anything from me." Later that afternoon, Kalea stepped out to the alley, slipping through the bakery's side entrance. Calvin Rhodes was still parked across the street, pretending to be bored, but now there was another car, a silver one, and this driver had a camera. She ducked back inside, chest heaving. They were circling. She returned to the attic and found Zayden sitting upright, typing into the encrypted phone she'd given back to him. He looked half dead but determined. "We need to disappear," he said without looking up. "To where?" "Not far, just away from eyes." Kalea's heart raced. "You can barely stand." "I'll manage." "You won't survive if you don't rest." He looked up then, and something in his expression made her stop. It wasn't arrogance, it was fear, not for himself, but for her. "They'll use you, Kalea, as leverage. I've seen what happens to people caught in the crossfire. I've done what happens." Her throat tightened. "I'm not leaving you," she said, quieter now. "You don't know what I am." She met his eyes. "You're the man I found bleeding to death in an alley who whispered for help when no one else would have. That's enough for me." The silence was thick with something unspoken. Zayden's jaw clenched. "Pack your things. At midnight we leave." "Where will we go?" He looked toward the window. "To war." The clock struck 11:43 p.m. when Kalea Monroe stepped out onto the rooftop of the bakery. A soft summer breeze ruffled her curls as she clutched a faded blanket and 2 chipped mugs filled with herbal tea. Zayden was already up there, somehow, leaning against the rusty railing like he hadn't been bleeding out just days ago. The stars above Rosemore Heights blinked faintly through the haze of street lamps and distant light pollution. Kalea cleared her throat gently. You shouldn't be standing. He didn't look at her. I needed air. You needed rest. I've been resting too long. She sighed and stepped forward. The rooftop creaked beneath her. The city looked different from up here, quieter, smaller, as if for just one night the chaos below had paused. She handed him a mug. Mint, it's all I had. Xaden accepted it with a slight nod. His hands were large, but the way he gripped the mug was careful, deliberate, like he was holding something fragile. Your stitches are still fresh, Kalea added, glancing down at his torso, wrapped in clean white gauze. You should be lying down. And you should be sleeping, he replied calmly. Yet here we are. She looked up at him, at his bruised cheekbone, the faint cut above his eyebrow, the way the moonlight caught the angles of his face. You didn't have to come with me, he said, after a long pause. You still don't. Kalea took a sip from her mug, and you didn't have to thank me, but you did. For a moment they simply stood in silence, drinking tea on a rooftop like two ordinary people, but they were anything but ordinary now. I used to come up here when I was a kid, Kalea said softly. Before my mum died, she worked nights at the hospital. I'd sneak out and sit here with a book, pretending I was in some other city. Paris, Tokyo, anywhere but Rosemore. Xaden turned toward her, one brow lifting. Why? Rosemore isn't the worst place in the world. She snorted. It's not the best either. You're not from here. You don't get it. This place is heavy. Everyone's either stuck, struggling, or on their way out. Except people like me, we just endure. Xaden was quiet for a moment. I never had that luxury. She glanced at him. Luxury? Of enduring? He nodded. You don't have the option to just survive when people are waiting for you to fail. Every breath I took after I turned 21 was watched, measured, manipulated. I was raised in power, trained to be cold, useful, dangerous. You talk like you're a weapon. I was. Silence. Kalea studied him. But you're not now. Xaden's eyes met hers, and in them was something unexpected, something unguarded. I don't know what I am anymore. He looked away, jaw clenched. I spent my whole life building things, security systems, cyber encryption software, covert intel networks. I created protection for people too powerful to protect themselves. But somewhere along the way, I became what I was protecting them from. Kalea swallowed. Is that why they came for you? Partly. His voice was quieter now. I found something I wasn't supposed to find, and someone close to me made a choice. He didn't say Carmen's name, but Kalea heard it anyway. She stepped closer. You're not a weapon, Xaden. He looked at her again, really looked, and something shifted. Her eyes were tired but soft, wide and honest. There was no hidden agenda, no angle, just a girl with scraped-up shoes, chipped mugs, and more courage than most CEOs he'd met. She saw through him like he was made of glass. Xaden lowered his gaze. You risked everything to pull a stranger out of the gutter. You weren't a stranger, not after I saw the way you clung to life. People who want to live, they're worth saving. He exhaled through his nose. Then, slowly, impossibly, he smiled, not a smirk, not a cold, calculated curl of the lip, a real smile. It caught Kalea off guard. What? She asked, half laughing, half blushing. Why are you looking at me like that? I don't remember the last time someone talked to me like that, he said. Like what? Like I'm not made of steel and secrets. She smiled back. Well, you bleed just like the rest of us. That makes you human. Xaden's eyes lingered on hers. For a second, it felt like time paused again. Just like in the alley, just like in the attic. Except now, It was warm, gentle. He leaned in slightly. Kalea's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around her mug. He didn't kiss her, not yet, but he brushed her shoulder with his hand. Light, barely there. A touch that said, "I see you." Then he looked away. "We should leave soon." Kalea blinked, breaking the spell. "Right. Midnight." She turned toward the stairs, then stopped. "You're different when you smile." Xaden raised a brow. "That a compliment?" "Maybe." "You should be careful," he said, sipping his tea again. "I might start smiling more." She laughed softly and disappeared down the stairs. Xaden stood alone on the rooftop. He hadn't smiled like that since he was 16, and he wasn't sure which scared him more, the enemies tracking him, or the girl who was slowly making him feel something he hadn't in years. Hope. Midnight came cloaked in fog. The air outside Thelma's bakery was cold enough to bite. Not winter cold, but sharp, like the world itself had caught wind of what Kalea Monroe was about to do, and had decided to make it harder. Upstairs, the attic was dimly lit by the flickering glow of a single desk lamp. Kalea knelt beside an open duffel bag, stuffing it with essentials. Her ID, the money she'd hidden in her sock drawer, a clean set of clothes, her late mother's photo. She didn't look at Xaden Cole. She couldn't, not after what he'd said. "This is as far as you go," he'd told her, minutes ago. "After tonight, we're done." The words were still lodged in her chest, like glass. "You're not coming back?" she had asked, trying to keep her voice even. "I'm going to disappear," he said. "You should do the same." "But it's better this way." And now, here they were. Kalea folding sweaters with mechanical precision, pretending her heart wasn't cracking in real time. Across the room, Xaden pulled a black hoodie over his fresh bandages. The bloodstains on his torso had faded into soft bruises, but the stiffness in his shoulders told her he was still far from healed. Not that it mattered to him. Xaden Cole didn't show weakness, not even when it hurt. She zipped the bag shut. "I don't understand," she said quietly, still not meeting his eyes. "You don't need to." "That's not fair." His voice came from behind her, clipped and cold. "Nothing about my life is fair, Kalea." She stood and turned to face him. "That's not what I meant. I'm not asking for a fairy tale. I'm asking for honesty." Xaden's jaw flexed. "I told you, anyone close to me becomes a liability. You've already done more than enough, risked more than enough. Now it's time to let me go." "And what if I don't want to?" He stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Then you're either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe I'm both." A beat of silence. The air between them throbbed with unspoken things. "I'm not afraid of your enemies," she said finally. "You should be," he replied. "They don't just kill people, Kalea. They erase them, wipe out everything, records, names, memories. You think people just vanish by accident?" "Number. They get erased, and if they find out what you've done for me..." "I knew the risk the second I pulled you out of that alley." His expression softened for a fraction of a second, but then he masked it again. "You don't get it. I'm not someone you can save. I'm not someone you can fix." Kalea stepped forward. Her voice was low, steady. "I wasn't trying to fix you." Xaden stared at her. He had faced gunfire, betrayal, international blackmail. He had stared down enemies with the power to bring down nations. But none of that had made his heart pound like this. Not like her. She was standing there with eyes full of defiance and hurt, wrapped in nothing but a thin hoodie and her stubborn compassion, and Xaden felt something shift in his chest. Damn it, he wasn't supposed to care, he wasn't supposed to feel, but Kalea Monroe had made him feel more in 4 days than anyone had in his entire life, and that made her dangerous. He stepped closer, just once, then stopped. "You'll forget me," he said softly. In a month or two, you'll go back to your life, sell flowers again, get a job somewhere better, meet someone your age, someone normal. Kalia shook her head. I won't forget you. He exhaled hard, turning away. You will. She reached for him before she could think better of it. Her fingers curled around the fabric of his hoodie sleeve. Don't go like this, she said. Not like I'm nothing. He turned slowly, his face unreadable. Then he gently took her hand in his and placed it over his chest. Beneath the gauze and muscle, his heart was thundering. You're not nothing, he said. You're the first thing I've felt in years. Her breath caught. His eyes held hers for a long, heavy second, and then he leaned in. His hand cupped her cheek. His lips brushed hers, soft at first, like a question, then firmer, deeper. Her hands found his shoulders. His found her waist. The world melted away. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't fiery or reckless. It was everything he'd been too afraid to give, and everything she never expected to receive. When they finally pulled apart, she could see something in his eyes that terrified her. Finality. I have to go now, he whispered. She nodded, blinking hard. He picked up the duffel bag, slung it over one shoulder, and walked to the window. He paused just before opening it. You're stronger than you think, Kalia. She said nothing. I left something under your pillow. Burn it after you read it. With that, he disappeared into the night like a shadow. Kalia stood in silence for a full minute, letting the emptiness rush in around her. Then she turned to the mattress, pulled back the pillow, and found a single folded piece of paper. She opened it. In Zayden's slanted, military-tight handwriting, it read, If they find me, don't come. If they kill me, don't cry. But if I survive, I'll find you. Zisi Kalea pressed the letter to her chest, and finally, she let herself cry. 1 week later, the attic was silent. No creaking footsteps, no raspy voice growling out tactical commands from a mattress, no mysterious stranger with haunted eyes asking for water at 3 a.m. Just Kalia Monroe, alone again. A girl with too many questions, and one folded note she couldn't stop rereading. If they find me, don't come. If they kill me, don't cry. But if I survive, I'll find you. She had burned the letter, just like he said, watched it curl into ash in a coffee tin behind Thelma's bakery. But the words were seared into her memory, like ink under her skin. Every night since he left, she thought she'd hear news of his body turning up in a river, or that a stranger would show up at the bakery with a bullet and her name in their mouth. But instead, nothing. No headlines, no scandals, no anonymous packages, just silence, which somehow was worse, because it meant he was either alive and hiding, or dead and forgotten. Neither option sat well with her. Kalia sat behind the counter of Thelma's bakery, staring blankly at the register, her apron dusted with flour and her spirit hollow. The morning rush had passed, leaving her alone with trays of cooling cinnamon rolls and the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Another day in paradise, Maya muttered from the kitchen as she wrestled with a jammed oven tray. Kalia forced a smile. She hadn't told anyone. Not about the man. Not about the blood. Not about the kiss. Especially not about the kiss. Some things were too impossible to say out loud. How do you explain that you gave your heart to a man who might not even be real? That the most powerful person you'd ever met left through your attic window after telling you he might die and might come back? You don't. You just keep wiping down countertops and waiting for a ghost to knock on your door. 3,000 miles away, in a secure black glass skyscraper buried deep in a city with no name, Zayden Cole was no longer bleeding. He was rebuilding, standing in a custom-tailored black suit, bruises healed, beard trimmed, eyes alert. He looked every bit the tycoon the world thought had vanished forever. But this Zayden was different. Colder, focused, relentless. "Status?" he barked, eyes fixed on the massive touchscreen wall inside the war room of the Coal Syndicate's private compound. A tech analyst spun around in her chair. "We've reclaimed 72% of the encrypted infrastructure. The last layer of breach software links back to a private account in Dubai, connected to Valez Holdings." Zayden's eyes darkened. Carmen, his second-in-command, Luca Tran, stepped forward, handing him a file. "Not just her. 2 board members signed over provisional power the day after your disappearance. They voted to liquidate your humanitarian division and approved a $500 million weapons contract." "Of course they did," Zayden muttered. "This was never just a coup. It was a purge." Luca nodded. "Your presence at the next executive summit will change the game. They thought you were dead." Zayden stared at the screen in silence. Somewhere deep inside, he could still feel the mattress in that dusty attic, the warmth of mint tea, the softness of a girl's hand on his face. He blinked once and refocused. "Then let's make them wish I was." That evening, Kalia sat on the rooftop again. Same chipped mug, same breeze. No Zayden. She closed her eyes, letting the wind play with her curls. She should have moved on by now. It had been a week. No contact, no signal. The smart thing would be to forget him, just like he asked. But her heart wasn't smart. Her heart was stubborn. Software dangerous. Down below, Maya yelled that someone was looking for her. Kalea stood reluctantly and climbed down the fire escape. A man in a delivery cap stood at the bakery door. He held out a small envelope. "Delivery for Kalea Monroe." She took it, pulse spiking. The man tipped his cap and walked away without waiting for a signature. Kalea opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a silver card. No return address, no message, but engraved with the emblem of a lion's head over a pair of wings. Her breath caught. Zayden's ring. His symbol. There was a phone number on the back. Nothing else. She rushed to the attic, locked the door behind her, and dialed with shaking fingers. It rang once, twice. Then, "Say your name," a voice instructed, distorted but familiar. "Kalea." A beat of silence. Then, his voice, warm, deep, steady. "You're safe?" Her knees nearly buckled. "Zayden? I'm coming back for you." Tears filled her eyes. "Where are you?" "I'm rebuilding what they tried to take. I had to be sure they weren't watching you, that they hadn't followed me to Rosemore. They didn't. You're clean, but I'm not." "Why now?" "Because this time, I'm not running. I'm going to war." Kalea's heart thundered. What does that mean? "It means everything they thought they buried is rising again, and when the dust settles, I want you beside me." She choked out a laugh. "You're not making sense." "I'll explain soon, but I need you to trust me." "I already do." Another beat of silence, then softer. "I never forgot the kiss." "Neither did I." "I'll see you soon." The line went dead. Kalea held the phone to her chest. He was alive. He was rising. And next time, he wasn't coming as a man in hiding. He was coming as the man the world had tried to erase and failed. Zayden Cole was back. 2 days later, Kalea stood behind the counter at Thelma's bakery, pretending to refill the cookie jar, though her eyes kept drifting toward the door. Every time the bell above it jingled, her heart leapt. Every time it wasn't him, her stomach sank just a little more. Her co-workers didn't notice. They were too busy gossiping about some shocking new headline lighting up phones around the city. Zayden Cole returns from the dead. The billionaire who vanished speaks at Global Tech Summit. The image they showed on screen made Kalea freeze. Zayden standing in a black tailored suit, stoic and beautiful, speaking behind a glass podium in front of hundreds of reporters. He was clean-shaven now. His wounds had healed, but his eyes hadn't changed. They were sharp, icy, focused, the same ones that had once softened just for her. He was alive and very much in control. But that was all the world got. A brief appearance, a 5-minute statement about cyber attacks, betrayal, and restructuring. No emotion, no details, no mention of the week he'd spent hidden in a stranger's attic, no mention of her. Kalea told herself she understood. Men like Zayden didn't talk about kisses in press conferences, but it didn't stop the ache. He'd called her, promised he was coming back, yet all she had now was a cold TV screen and the ghost of a memory that felt too fragile to hold on to. Until the bakery bell rang, and everything stopped. He stood in the doorway like a shadow from another world, tall, dressed in black, collar turned up, a quiet force that instantly pulled the breath from her lungs. Zayden Cole. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there, watching her with eyes that said more than any headline ever could. Kalea dropped the cookie jar. Glass shattered across the floor. Maya gasped from behind the counter. "Girl, are you—" "I've got it," Kalea said too quickly, already walking around the counter, stepping through shards in her worn-out sneakers. She reached him slowly, heart in her throat. "Hi," she breathed. Zayden's voice was soft. "Hi." For a second, neither of them moved. Then, as if the world had finally snapped back into focus, he reached out and cupped her face gently with both hands. Her body trembled. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I couldn't forget you, Kalea. Not for a second." She blinked back tears. "So why didn't you come sooner?" "I had to make sure it was safe, that they weren't watching, that you weren't marked." "And now? Now I've erased every trail they could follow." He stepped closer, his forehead brushing hers. "They took everything from me," he said. "My company, my name, my safety. But the moment I lost it all, you gave me something I didn't know I needed." "What?" "Peace." She laughed quietly, shakily. "You didn't look very peaceful that night in the alley." He smiled faintly, just for her. "Maybe not, but you still saw the man under the blood." Kalea closed her eyes. She didn't need a fairy tale, but she needed this. Him, here, real. Zayden lowered his head and kissed her, not like someone claiming a prize, but like a man anchoring himself to the only thing he trusted, and Kalea melted into him like she had been waiting 1,000 years. Around them, the bakery kept humming. No one dared interrupt. They were too stunned, or maybe they could feel it too. The electricity, the weight of something extraordinary happening in a corner booth beside the cinnamon rolls. When they pulled apart, Kalea looked up at him and whispered, "What now?" Zayden exhaled. "Now, I offer you a choice." She frowned. "What kind of choice?" "I'm leaving again, but this time not to hide. I'm launching something new, a full reset, not just the company, my entire life. Clean board, new headquarters, new mission, but I can't do it here." "Where?" "Ravencrest, the capital. I bought an entire building, top security, fresh team, no board of vultures, no ties to the old world." Kalea's breath caught. "And you want me to go with you?" "I want you to choose. Come with me and start a new life, one where no one can ever use you again. Or stay here and I'll walk away. I won't pressure you." She stared at him. "Why me?" His eyes darkened, not with danger, but with depth. "Because you didn't ask for anything when I had nothing. Because I trust you. Because when I look at you, I remember I'm still human." Kalea's voice trembled. "And if I go with you, then you'll have a place at my side, not as a guest, not as a secret, as someone who knows the truth and stays anyway." She studied him, the way his shoulders squared even as his voice softened. This wasn't a proposal of romance. It was a reckoning. Go with him, and she'd be walking into a world of power, secrets and shadows, but she'd never be alone again. I need to tell my aunt, she said. Xaden nodded. Take your time, I'll wait. Kalia smiled through the fog in her chest. No, you won't. You're too impatient. He smirked. You know me well. That night, Kalia packed her things. Again. But this time, it wasn't with dread. It was with decision. When Xaden met her outside the bakery just before midnight, she was already standing by the black SUV he'd sent. You're sure? He asked, one hand on the door. She looked up at him. I'm not rich. I'm not powerful. I have no idea how to exist in your world. You don't need to, he said simply. You'll help me build a new one. She smiled. Then yes, I'm sure. He opened the door, and as she stepped inside, leaving behind the scent of cinnamon and the creaky attic that had held too many memories, Kalea Monroe knew her life would never be simple again, but it would finally be hers. With Xaden Cole beside her, anything was possible, even love born from chaos. The elevator hummed softly as it rose past the 60th floor. Smooth, silent, impossibly fast, like everything else in Xaden Cole's world. Kalea Monroe stood in the center of the mirrored walls, her reflection multiplying in every direction. Her suitcase sat beside her boots. She'd never owned heels, and she wasn't starting now. Next to her, Xaden stood in crisp silence, dressed in dark grey slacks and a tailored jacket that hugged his broad frame. His left hand rested in his pocket. His right occasionally brushed hers, as if anchoring her to him without needing words. I don't belong here, Kalea whispered as the elevator passed the 64th floor. Xaden looked at her. You belong anywhere I do. She gave him a side glance. That's not how the world works. It is now. The elevator dinged, floor 68. The doors parted, revealing a penthouse that looked more like a fortress than a home. Glass walls opened onto a 360-degree view of Ravencrest City, skyscrapers sparkling under a stormy sky, sleek black furniture, gold accents, an interior waterfall, a custom kitchen that looked untouched. Everything gleamed. A guard in a suit stepped back respectfully as they entered. Welcome home, sir. Xaden nodded. Any updates? Yes, sir. Ms. Valles is moving fast. She's announced a new cybersecurity division with your former COO as her partner. Stock prices are surging on false promises. Xaden's jaw tightened. Continue tracking. The guard vanished into a back room. Kalea stood frozen. This is where you live? She asked. He glanced at her. It's where I sleep. Don't confuse the two. She turned in a slow circle. It's beautiful. It's lonely. Kalea met his gaze. His voice wasn't cold, just tired. Come, he said gently. Let me show you something. He led her past the modern art and impossible staircase, into a sunroom made entirely of glass. In the center stood a long wooden table, simple, hand-carved, out of place in such a futuristic space. This belonged to my mother, Xaden said, running a hand along the surface. She used to host dinner for the neighbors even when we had no money. She'd make 2 dishes stretch for 10 people. Kalea blinked. You were poor? He nodded. Until I was 13. My father died in a fire. After that, I swore I'd never let anyone I loved go hungry again. She watched his eyes darken as he pulled a chair out for her. This is where we'll eat, he said. Not in the dining hall, not at gala banquets. Here. Kalea sat slowly, overwhelmed. Xaden leaned against the wall and folded his arms. This isn't a palace, Kalea. It's a battlefield. If you stay here with me, you'll be watched, judged, targeted. Some people will want to use you to get to me. Others will simply want to tear you down. because they don't understand why you're beside me. She looked up. Then tell me now, am I a guest, or something else? His answer was simple. You're mine. A shiver passed through her, and not from fear. He didn't say it like a claim, he said it like a vow. Before she could reply, the door opened. A tall, elegant woman entered, her heels clicking against marble. She wore a navy blue pantsuit, her black hair pulled into a tight twist. Her eyes raked over Kalia in one cold sweep. "Sir," the woman said, nodding at Zayden. "Apologies for intruding. I was told your guest hadn't arrived." "She's not a guest," Zayden replied evenly. "She lives here now." The woman didn't blink. "I see. Kalia, this is Soraya Lin, my head of operations." Soraya extended a hand with a politician's smile. "Welcome to the Coal Syndicate. I'll be overseeing your onboarding." "Onboarding?" Kalia echoed, frowning. "You're part of this world now," Zayden said. "You'll need security clearance, a communication protocol, access to the safe zones. Soraya will arrange everything." Kalia looked between them, suddenly feeling like she'd stumbled into a spy agency rather than a tech empire. Soraya's smile was razor-thin. "We'll begin first thing tomorrow. I'll email you the onboarding materials. Dress code is flexible, but we recommend avoiding soft soles. They squeak in the executive halls." Kalia managed a nod. Soraya turned to leave, then paused. "Also, sir, I assume she'll need media shielding." "Yes," Zayden said, "and assign her a shadow." Kalia stared. "A what?" "Someone who watches your back," Soraya replied smoothly. "Discreetly, of course." She left. Kalia exhaled hard. "Okay, so, I live here, I'm being watched, and I need bodyguards now?" Zayden moved closer. "I told you this wasn't simple, but I'll keep you safe. Every second, I didn't ask you to protect me." "You didn't have to." Their eyes locked, but just as Kalia opened her mouth, Zayden's phone buzzed sharply. He checked it. His expression changed. "What is it?" she asked. Zayden's voice was low. "An internal breach." He crossed to a digital panel on the wall and swiped open a live security feed. Camera footage flickered. A live shot of the floor below the penthouse, where a meeting was taking place in the boardroom. Carmen Valles was standing at the center of the room. Bold, brazen, inside his own tower. Zayden's voice dropped. "She's here." Kalia stepped beside him. "I thought she was gone, or hiding." "She's not hiding," he growled. "She's taunting me." The camera zoomed slightly. Carmen turned and stared directly at the camera, smiling. "She knows we're watching," Kalia whispered. Zayden's jaw clenched. "And she knows you're here." A chill swept through the penthouse. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Zayden turned to her. "No more waiting," he said. "I brought you here for safety, but now I see the truth." "What truth?" "This isn't about keeping you safe anymore. It's about making you untouchable." The room was too quiet. Kalia stood alone inside a sleek glass-paneled lounge on the 67th floor, the level just beneath Zayden's penthouse. The carpet was thick, dark grey. The furniture was modern and sharp-edged. A tray of untouched espresso sat between two low white chairs. She hadn't sat down. Her palms were sweating. She shouldn't have come down here alone. She knew that. But when Soraya Lin told her, "Carmen Valles has requested a word," Kalia had felt something twist in her chest. Not just fear, but readiness. She didn't want Zayden fighting her battles. Not all of them. Especially not this one. Because Carmen Valles wasn't just another enemy. She was his former ally. His ex. The woman who betrayed him and nearly got him killed. And now she wanted 5 minutes alone with the girl who hid him. The door opened. Kalia turned. Carmen Valles entered like a queen who owned the building. She wore a tailored cream suit, heels that echoed through the lounge, and diamond studs that glittered at her ears. Her expression was unreadable, composed, faintly amused, like she was already 5 steps ahead in a game no one else realized had started. She closed the door behind her. "So," Carmen said coolly, "you're the girl from the attic." Kalia didn't flinch. "You know a lot for someone who failed to kill him." Carmen's eyebrows arched in mock admiration. "Sharp tongue. I can see why he's intrigued." "I'm not here to impress you." "Oh, darling," Carmen said, walking toward the espresso tray. "You're not here by choice. You're here because Zayden allowed it. Don't mistake that for power." "I'm not the one mistaking things," Kalia replied. "You thought he was dead, but he's not, and now you're scared." Carmen gave a soft laugh as she poured herself a cup of espresso. "Scared? Number pleased, actually. Zayden's always more dangerous when he's cornered. I knew he'd come back eventually. It was just a matter of time." "What surprised me," she said, sipping from the cup, "was that he came back with you." She studied Kalea now, eyes narrowing slightly. "Where did he find you? A diner? A street corner? A shelter?" "A bakery," Kalea said. Carmen smirked. "Even better. Very cliché of him. Rescued by the peasant girl. How romantic." Kalea's fists clenched. "You think that bothers me? The money, your suits, your degrees? You wear all that like it makes you superior. But when he was bleeding to death, it wasn't your name," he whispered. Carmen's smile faded, just for a moment. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Let's not pretend this is a love story," she said. "Zayden is a machine, built from trauma, anger, and ruthlessness. He doesn't love, he possesses. And you, poor naive Kalia, are just his latest project, something soft to remind him he still has a heart." Kalia met her gaze. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm the first person who didn't want anything from him." "That doesn't make you special. It makes you predictable." "No," Kalia said quietly. "What makes me special is that I'm not afraid of you." Carmen stepped closer now, espresso cup forgotten. "You should be." "Why?" Kalia asked. "Because you failed to kill him once, and now you're embarrassed?" Carmen's eyes narrowed to slits. Kalia pressed forward. "You want to intimidate me, but you're wasting your breath. I know what you are. You're the type who smiles while stabbing people in the back. And you know what people like you hate most?" Carmen didn't answer. "Being replaced," Kalia said. The air snapped with tension. For a long moment they just stared at each other. Then Carmen chuckled, stepped back, and slowly lowered herself into one of the chairs. "Well," she said, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle in her slacks. "That was fun." Kalia remained standing. Carmen gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Sit, won't you? Or would you rather continue posturing like a stray cat?" Kalia didn't move. "I don't trust you." "Good, that means you're learning." Silence. Carmen crossed one leg over the other. "I didn't come here to fight you, Kalia. I came to warn you." Kalia frowned. "About what?" Carmen looked up, and for the first time, her expression turned serious. Cold, dangerous. "This world, the one you just stepped into, it doesn't allow innocence. You think Zayden's enemies are your biggest threat? They're not. He is." "You're wrong." "No, I'm not," Carmen said, her voice low now. "Zayden doesn't think like a normal man. He's brilliant, calculating, and when he cares for someone, it's not love, it's obsession. He will protect you, yes, but he will also control you. The deeper you fall into his orbit, the less you will recognize yourself." Kalea's mouth tightened. "He's not like that with me." "Not yet, but he will be." "And how would you know? Because once I was you," Carmen said flatly. "The girl who thought she could soften him, save him, make him normal." "And what happened?" "I succeeded, for about 5 minutes. Then he decided the world didn't deserve peace, and he burned it to the ground. Kalea swallowed. He's not the man you think he is, Carmen added, and if you stay, you won't be the girl you are now. Kalea stood there, heart racing. Was that the warning? She asked quietly. Because it sounded a lot like jealousy. Carmen's face hardened. You think I want him back? Number Surj, I think you want to destroy what you couldn't keep. Carmen stood slowly, brushing past her. Watch yourself, little girl. Xaden might protect you from the world, but nothing will protect you from himself. And with that, she walked out. Kalea stood alone. Her fingers were trembling, her chest tight, but her eyes burned with clarity. She turned toward the elevator and hit the top floor. She needed to see him. Now, Xaden was waiting by the window when she entered the penthouse. He didn't turn, just said, I watched the whole thing. Kalea crossed the room, slowly. You were spying? I was protecting. She walked to his side. She said I'll lose myself, Kalea whispered. That being with you will change me. Xaden's jaw flexed. It will. Kalea looked up at him. He finally turned, meeting her gaze. Everything I touch changes. Then touch me, she said. His breath caught. I'm not afraid of becoming something new, she continued. I'm afraid of walking away and never knowing who I could have been beside you. Xaden reached out and took her face in his hands. You already are someone, he said softly, and I won't let this world take that from you. She smiled, teary-eyed. Too late, you already did. And then she kissed him, fierce, unshaken, certain. Carmen's warning was still echoing in her head, but Kalea had already made her choice. The invitation came printed on black silk paper, sealed with the emblem of the Coal Syndicate, a lion's head over a crown of thorns. Kalea stared at it as Soraya Lin fastened a diamond clasp at the back of her dress. You'll only be expected to speak once, Soraya said flatly. Then smile, sit beside Xaden, and look like you belong. That's all. Kalea swallowed. And if I mess up? Soraya smirked faintly in the mirror. You won't, but if you do, well, just make it look expensive. The gown they'd dressed her in was a deep emerald satin that shimmered under the light like melted glass. High slit, bare shoulders, a touch too revealing for Kalea's taste. But Soraya insisted, You're not just his +1, you're the headline, walk like it. Downstairs, the car was already waiting. Xaden stood beside it in a tuxedo so precise it could have been stitched onto his body. When he saw her approach, his eyes, usually steel, warmed instantly. You look... His voice trailed off. She gave a nervous smile. Like I don't belong. No, he said, like everyone else is about to realize they don't deserve to be in the same room. He took her hand and guided her into the black sedan. The doors closed with a hiss of air. Why are we doing this again? Kalea asked as the city blurred past the tinted windows. Because tonight I'm reminding the world I didn't just survive. I evolved. And me? You're the part they won't see coming. The atrium was a glass and gold temple floating above downtown Ravencrest. A sky-high gala hall reserved for world leaders and war criminals, sometimes both at once. As Xaden and Kalea stepped inside, 100 heads turned. Cameras didn't flash. Not here. These guests didn't need press. They were the press, the billionaires who owned networks, the financiers who funded empires, the enemies who smiled with knives in their teeth. Kalea kept her chin high as Xaden led her to the center of the ballroom. She could feel eyes raking over her, curious, hungry, judging. Xaden introduced her only once. This is Kalea. She's with me. And it was enough. No one questioned it aloud. but she could feel the buzz ripple like static. She's with him? Is she a political play? Is she the reason he disappeared? Soraya met them at the circular table set on the platform. "Everything's in place," she said under her breath. "But Valez moved your nameplate." Zayden's jaw twitched. "To where?" Soraya pointed. Kalea followed the line of her finger and saw that her seat was now next to Carmen Valez. A trap. Zayden's eyes hardened. "Undo it." Kalea touched his hand gently. "Number, let her try." He looked at her. "I'm not scared," she whispered. "Let her see that." Zayden hesitated, then nodded once, and so Kalea walked, alone, to her seat beside the woman who wanted her erased. Carmen was already seated, sipping from a glass of crimson wine. My, she purred as Kalea sat. "You clean up well." "Don't you have a knife to sharpen?" Kalea replied sweetly. Carmen laughed, a low, amused sound. "If you weren't so naive, I'd almost like you." "Then it's a good thing I don't care what you like." The music swelled and the room quieted as Zayden took the podium. "Good evening," he began. "I thank you all for accepting my invitation. I imagine many of you are surprised to see me." A soft, knowing ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. "But let me reassure you," he continued, "what you see here tonight is not a return. It's a rebirth." Kalea watched him. He was utterly in control. His voice, calm, commanding. His presence, magnetic. And when he glanced in her direction, just briefly, she felt a warmth in her chest that no chandelier could replicate. Carmen leaned close, whispering under the applause. "He speaks like a god, doesn't he?" Kalea didn't answer. "But gods don't love, Kalea. They conquer. And you." Carmen's smile curved like a knife. "You're just the collateral." "I'd rather be loved by a god than feared by a snake," Kalea said softly. Carmen's eyes flashed, but before she could respond, the servers arrived with the first course, and the room shifted back to pleasantries and crystal clinking. But Kalea knew better. This was no dinner. It was a war, dressed in velvet and poured over ice. Later, as dessert was cleared and the wine flowed freely, a hush fell over the room. Carmen stood. A toast. She raised her glass, smiling toward Zayden. "To resurrection," she said. "To power, to second chances, and to the strange women who come along just when we think we've seen it all." A few polite laughs, a few confused glances. Kalea felt the eyes on her. She stood slowly and lifted her glass. "To masks," she said, voice steady. "To those who wear them so long they forget who they really are. And to the ones brave enough to take them off, even if it costs them everything." The silence was sharp. Even Carmen didn't smile. Zayden's eyes flicked to Kalea, then to Carmen, and for a brief moment, a blink, a breath, he smiled. Not coldly, not for power, but for her. When the dinner ended, Zayden found Kalea alone on the balcony, hands gripping the golden railing. "You did well," he said. "I survived," she murmured. "That's not quite the same." He stepped beside her. "Number. But it's how legends begin." She glanced at him. "Do you regret bringing me?" "Number, but now I know for sure. You're no longer a girl hiding in an attic." She looked back at the glittering city. "What am I then?" Zayden touched her hand. "You're my equal." A beat passed. Then, "And you're in danger." Kalea froze. He turned toward her, face unreadable. "Someone leaked a copy of your security clearance. Your name is on the dark web. It happened during the dinner." Her heart dropped. "Who?" "I don't know yet, but I will." She looked up at him. "What do we do?" His voice was a whisper. "We make our move." 3 hours after the gala, the top floors of the Coal Syndicate Tower were quiet. Too quiet. Gone were the champagne toasts, the clinking of crystal, the flirtations cloaked as business deals. Now, deep underground, under layers of security, a war room buzzed with cold urgency. Kalea sat at a long table made of black steel and brushed chrome, her hands folded in her lap. Around her, Zayden's inner circle moved like shadows. Soraya Lin at the center, dressed in her usual navy and black, tapping commands into a holographic panel. A wall-sized screen flickered to life, showing a grid of surveillance footage from the dinner. "Play it back," Soraya commanded. "From 9:48 p.m. to 10:03, focus on executive table interactions." Zayden stood behind Kalea, arms crossed, face unreadable. He hadn't said much since the dinner ended, only 3 words. "Your file's compromised." Kalea had nodded, numb, then followed him down here without asking questions. Now, as the footage played, she felt the chill of something larger than herself. This wasn't just about stolen data. This was about trust, broken, bleeding, and weaponized. "There," Soraya said, freezing the screen. Footage zoomed in on a silver USB being slipped into a port behind the serving station. The angle was tight, just an elbow, a glimpse of a hand, the flash of a ring. Zayden narrowed his eyes. "Enhance!" The image sharpened. Kalea sucked in a breath. The ring was unmistakable, a square sapphire set in a white gold band. She'd seen it before. On Jonas Ravine, Zayden's new chief financial advisor, the one who'd sat 3 seats down from Carmen at the dinner, the one who had toasted Zayden's return to power with a smug smile and a glass of 1982 Lafite. Soraya turned to Zayden. "Want me to pull him in?" "No," Zayden said. "Not yet." Kalea turned. "Why not?" "You know it's him." "Knowing isn't proving," Zayden replied. "Jonas is smart. If we confront him now, he'll deny it and bury whatever trail he left behind." "So what do we do?" Zayden looked at her. "We bait him." 2 days later, Kalea walked into the executive lounge wearing the same dress she'd worn the night of the gala. It wasn't vanity, it was strategy. Soraya had explained it carefully. "We need Jonas to think you're vulnerable, shaken, unstable. He needs to believe you're still just a scared girl clinging to the man who pulled you out of poverty." Kalea hated every second of the manipulation, the act of pretending to be helpless, but she'd agreed, because if she didn't help Zayden expose the traitor now, someone else might get hurt, someone who wouldn't survive it. She poured herself a drink and sat at the bar, waited. Right on cue, Jonas appeared, holding a tablet and a latte. "Kalea," he said smoothly. "You're early." "I couldn't sleep," she replied, turning just slightly to face him. Jonas sat beside her, too close. "Hard night?" he asked. She let her voice tremble. "They put a guard on my door." He tilted his head. "Standard protocol, you're Zayden's asset now." "Is that all I am?" Jonas smiled. "What else would you be?" Kalea didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her glass and let her fingers accidentally knock it over, sending whiskey across the bar top and onto Jonas's tablet. He cursed, jumped up. "Sorry," she stammered, grabbing a napkin. No, it's fine," he muttered, swiping at the screen. But Kalea had already seen it. Just for a moment, before the tablet's lock screen blinked out, she saw a list of transfer files. One of them had her name on it. Kalea Monroe, clearance.bx. She looked up. Jonas's smile returned too quickly. "You okay?" he asked again. "Yeah," she said, stepping back. "Just clumsy." "Don't worry," he said smoothly. "You'll learn." She left quickly. Downstairs, she didn't go back to her room. She went straight to sub-level 3. "You were right," she told Zayden. He stood beside the server unit, watching code scroll across multiple monitors. A technician nodded to him, then stepped aside. Kalea laid out everything. The conversation, the file name, the fake apology. Zayden listened in silence. When she finished, he nodded once. He took the bait. Kalea exhaled. So now what? He turned to her. Now we bleed him dry. That night, Zayden called a private board meeting. Jonas was the first to arrive, smug and composed, but this time Zayden didn't let him speak. Instead, he played the footage. The USB, the leaked file log, the private banking transfer, routed through a dummy account that traced back to Carmen Valez's holding company. Jonas's face turned pale. This isn't— Don't insult my intelligence, Zayden snapped. You sold access. You endangered Kalea. You tried to destabilize my return. It wasn't personal, Jonas said desperately. Carmen made an offer, one I couldn't refuse. And now I'm making mine, Zayden said coldly. He tapped his tablet. 2 security agents stepped forward. Jonas stood. Wait, Zayden cut him off. You'll walk out of this building with your life, but not your freedom. You're being turned over to international cybercrime authorities. Your sentence will be long, and your silence, irrelevant. Jonas's face collapsed. The guards escorted him out. The room fell into stunned silence. Kalea sat in the corner, heart racing. She wasn't used to this, the ruthlessness, the precision, but she understood now. This wasn't just Zayden's world, it was hers too. Later that night, Zayden stood on the rooftop garden, overlooking the city. Lights shimmered below, golden veins of power. Kalea approached him quietly. You didn't blink, she said, when you took him down. I couldn't afford to. Does it ever get easier? She asked. Losing people? Number choosing who gets to stay. Zayden was quiet. Then, only when I know who I'd kill for. Kalea looked up at him, and for the first time, he didn't look like a titan or a king. He just looked like a man, tired, bruised, alive. She stepped closer. Then let's build something that doesn't need walls or secrets. He touched her face. Even if it means burning down everything I've built? She nodded. Then, he whispered, we'll light the match together. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Wind howled against the windows of the Coal Syndicate penthouse. Thunder cracked across the skyline like a warning shot. Below, the city lights flickered under sheets of rain, as if Ravencrest itself sensed the shift coming. Kalea stood barefoot on the marble balcony, her satin robe clinging to her skin, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure why the air felt so different tonight, only that something was ending, or beginning. Behind her, the glass door slid open. Zayden stepped out. He didn't speak. He just came up behind her, slipped his arms around her waist, and pulled her gently against him. Can you feel it too? She asked softly. Yes, he murmured. Everything's about to change. A beat of silence. Then he pulled something from the inside pocket of his robe. A small box. He held it out. Kalea turned slowly, blinking at the velvet square in his hand. You're joking, she said breathlessly. I never joke. She hesitated, trembling, not from fear but from disbelief. You barely believe in love. I didn't, he said, until you walked into that attic. He opened the box. Inside was a ring unlike any she'd ever seen. A single, uncut emerald set in a thin band of black platinum. Raw, real, untamed, like them. I don't want to own you, he said. I want to build something with you. Something the world can't poison or buy. She stared at the ring. You don't have to say yes, he added quickly. We could wait, or not do it at all. I just— Yes, she whispered. Zayden froze. Yes? He asked, like he didn't trust his own ears. Kalea nodded, smiling through tears. Yes, Zayden, I'll marry you. He laughed softly, a sound she'd only heard once or twice, always when he let his guard drop. Then he kissed her, slowly, reverently, like he was anchoring himself to this moment. But the kiss was interrupted by an alarm. A single red light blinked on the security panel inside the living room. Perimeter breach. Zayden's face changed instantly. He moved faster than she'd ever seen, snapping open a control screen, swiping through multiple camera feeds. Sub-level 2, West Corridor, explosives. A shadow blurred past the lens, and then a flash. Boom! The building shook. They reached the lower level, just as another explosion rocked the east wing. Smoke curled through the air vents. Sprinklers hissed. Carmen's people had breached the syndicate, but Zayden's forces weren't sleeping. Gunfire echoed down the corridor as Soraya's elite unit engaged the intruders. Zayden dragged Kalia through a side tunnel toward the safe chamber, a steel-reinforced hideout deep beneath the building. But just before they reached it, Carmen stepped into their path. Alone, wearing white, calm, unburned, unbothered. "Going somewhere?" she asked. Zayden aimed his gun instantly, but Carmen didn't flinch. She raised her hands. "No weapons, just words," she said. Kalia stepped beside Zayden. "I should have known you'd try something tonight," Zayden snarled. "I gave you a chance," Carmen said. "I told you what you were becoming." "No, you gave me an ultimatum," he snapped. "Step down or be destroyed." "You chose wrong." "Wrong is watching a woman I trusted try to kill me." Carmen's eyes flicked to Kalea. "Did he tell you, Kalea?" she said. "What he did to my brother?" Kalea blinked. "What?" Zayden stiffened. Carmen smiled coldly. "My baby brother, Luca, he worked for Zayden once, trusted him, and when a deal went bad, Zayden left him behind." "That's not what happened," Zayden said. "He was 18, Carmen hissed. "You used him." "He was a mole," Zayden said quietly. "He betrayed me, and he died because he chose the wrong side." Carmen's expression twisted. "He was my brother." "And this?" Zayden gestured around them. "This war, this attack, this is about revenge? It's about justice." "No," Kalea said suddenly. "It's about power. You don't care who gets hurt. You just want to win." "Than me?" "No," Kalea said. "I think he's trying to be, and you can't stand that." For a moment the hallway went still, then Carmen's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret siding with him," she said softly, "because one day he'll have to choose between his power and you." "I already have," Zayden said. And fired. A flash, not at Carmen, but at the panel beside the emergency door. The walls slammed down, trapping her on the other side. Zayden pulled Kalea into the chamber as lockdown engaged. Sirens wailed, the building burned, and Ravencrest watched as power shifted hands again, not with a press release, but with fire. The next morning, the Coal Syndicate Tower was sealed. Media swarmed the streets. Official statements called it a containment test gone wrong. But inside, Zayden's empire held. Carmen had vanished, her forces withdrew, and in the quiet after the storm, Kalea stood barefoot once again. Not in fear this time, but in resolve. Zayden stood beside her, bruised, bloodied, but alive. He took her hand. "So," he said hoarsely, "still want to marry me?" She smiled through the smoke and dust. "More than ever. Amazing followers." Here comes the end of the story. If I was able to make your day comment, you made my day,